Hey everyone, it's Jim
And Charles
from Valves and More, an online vintage tube store. And today in Tube Lab number 128, we're going to take another look at dipole speakers, also known as open baffles. But first, caution everyone, electronics and tube amplifiers can have very high voltages present, which can be lethal. Exercise extreme caution when working around them. Always consult a professional technician when in doubt. So last week we did an introduction to open baffle speakers. This week we're going to actually have a first look at our prototype number 12. Okay, Charles, well, let's head over to the listening room. Wow, I just love that track. That, of course, was Flamenco Sketches off of Miles Davis's most famous album.
Kind of Blue.
Kind of Blue, probably the most famous jazz album of all time.
And we've been really enjoying it lately, listening to it a lot.
So what was the system we were listening to? We had the GU50 monoblocks in.
The GU50 monoblocks and our Universal 6-12 SN7 preamp.
And it was playing a really special preamp too, wasn't it? That's the 12 volt Tungsol
12 SN7.
Jazz.
And they're the mousier version.
The mousier version. So very clean tube, but with almost an infinite amount of detail. It's one of my favorite tubes. But you find you really can't listen to them that long.
Well, they're not quite as warm as the Sylvanias, but they have just amazing detail if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, yeah.
But we're not here to talk about tubes.
No, we're not, though we could all day, couldn't we?
Absolutely.
We're here to take a look at prototype number 12. Now, one summer, many years ago, I built 12 prototype open baffles. They're all basically of this design. I started off with a big flat panel that went right to the floor and had, a stand. And didn't matter how I arranged the drivers, how big the woofer was, how many there were, I couldn't get nice bass out of it. And I was really, wringing my hands and up at night in the middle of the night wondering what the heck I could do to improve bass. So let's start at the bottom. What I found was some notes online of something called an H-frame. So what that is basically an open box. It looks like exactly like this on the back. And it's basically a box for the woofer baffle. And what it does is you put the H-frame right on the floor. There's no feet, no spacers, no isolators.
It's sitting flat down here.
It's on the floor, and it couples the low frequencies to the floor and basically to the room. And what that does is naturally amplify the bass. And it made a huge difference. Now, I originally started off with a smaller 12-inch woofer, and last summer you helped me. We made what it has been so far the last of the modifications to design number 12. And we put in a 14-inch paper coned woofer. It's fairly high efficiency, so it matches the higher efficiency of the rest of the drivers. That's something, if you noodle around with your own speaker design, matching efficiency of the speaker drivers themselves is important. Yes, you can build a crossover and trim out a driver. I don't like putting resistors in my circuit, in my crossover circuit, so I try to match the efficiency of the drivers. Mm-hmm. Anyways, when I put it sounded
great before, but when we put this in, it really it brought the bass out even more.
And it's funny, this is slow design. And part of the reason why it's slow design is because we're busy building the business, but also because we don't have a lot of time to do things like this that are really outside of our normal day. Mm-hmm. So I think I lived with the design for, I don't know how many years, quite a while. And one day I just woke up and I said, I think the bass could really use a little bit of an improvement.
Yeah.
And it did.
And really, we can't take these down too often. We need them for testing.
Yeah, that's true. They're always in service. In fact, we just had a friend over the other day, and he brought cables, he brought power cords, and we were swapping and having a good time for just a little while, because it was in the middle of the workday. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, and we learned something, a little bit about cables.
And he brought a couple of our prototypes for the Uris as well that we had a chance to listen to.
So you might say, Jim, are you testing these things? Have you got a microphone? What computer program are you running? Well, when I first started noodling around with speaker design, I would do a room test. I would listen to the speakers and I would record my frequency response. But frankly, I think 90% of speaker design is listening to them. So we tune by ear. We tune all of our kit amps, all of our prototype work. Yes, we do.
We do sweeps of them, but we listen to them, and that's the most important part.
Yeah. So, and I think we actually will listen to them before we even sweep a piece of gear.
Yeah, and usually the sweeps confirm what we're hearing.
Yeah. So, trust your ears, and if you're going to noodle around with your own custom baffles, you may end up with a speaker that's going to sound great in your room with your music at that moment in time with your furniture, because even the furniture affects the sound. But don't be afraid to do that. So what if they only sound great in your listening position?
That's what matters.
That's what matters. So moving up, we've got a really large, this is a 10-inch mid-range, and you won't see 10-inch mid-ranges that often. They're becoming more common. This is it's a salvage driver. We talked about it last week. It's a wonderful sounding mid-range. Mm-hmm. Remember, 90% of recorded music is sitting in the mids, in general. And the thing about a larger driver, whether it's a woofer or mid-range or even a tweeter, is that you get more dispersion, you get much less of a focus of the sound. And I listen to, and we listen to, world jazz, acoustic music, small ensemble. Yes, when I was younger, I was really into prog. Those days are mostly behind me. I still have some really great records in my collection, but These days, I just want to chill and relax at the end of a busy workday. And I love going to live jazz shows. And this system is as close as I've ever been to live music.
You can really close your eyes and feel like you're there.
And open baffles are a big part of that. So what's going on here? Well, the sound is moving off of the front of the drivers. Everybody gets that. But when the drivers are on the negative sign, they're actually in the backward motion, right? So the same volume of sound is actually in behind here. Now there's nothing behind here, it's completely open. And that sound is coming back and it's hitting the rear wall. And that will reflect and head back out.
And it takes half the power for it to go backwards, doesn't it?
I'm not sure about that. All I know is that the reflections off the wall essentially become extra harmonics on top of this.
That help fill the room.
So they're at a time delay. Not a very big time delay because the speakers are only a couple of feet from the wall. That's another thing to keep in mind. You really can't put your open baffles on the wall or on a bookshelf. They need to have some distance.
It's going to trap all those reflections, but you also can't put them somewhere completely open behind them. We found that out earlier.
That's right. I mean, our first configuration in our new listening room, we're only here 2 weeks now, I think.
Yeah.
So, but we've already had 2 complete configurations, and the first one was
It was terrible.
It's a terrible.
We had one speaker that was sitting in the corner, and we had great reflections off of it, and the other was firing back into an open room.
Well, it was on the edge of the wall.
Yeah. But the reflections didn't have the same distance, and we were losing a lot of our volume on our right speaker.
Yeah, it was like we had dropped out the channel almost. That's how much the reflections are additive. Remember, a lot of what is sonically pleasurable throughout your system is an additive feature. Not very often do we want to actually subtract things.
Yeah.
Now, the new listening room is really quite lively acoustically. You can hear how the sound is reverberating. It's a house built in the early 60s. It's got plaster walls, plaster ceiling. It's got a beautiful natural stone fireplace.
Hardwood floors.
And we've dampened it a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm. But it's a bigger opener space as well.
Yeah, so that makes a big difference. So what's on top for the tweeter? We've got a wave core, wave-guided 30 mil diaphragm, soft dome diaphragm. I love the sound of soft dome tweeters. 30 millimeters is just under 1.25 inches, so that's a fairly big diaphragm. So you might notice that it's angled this way, so sort of down, and that this is angled up a little bit. And the whole point of angling is to try and align the drivers so that if you were to actually make a cross-section of the room, you would see that the tweeter is aimed pretty close to where our ears are in the sitting position, or listening position, and the woofer, or mid-range,
is also aimed at the same spot.
That's right. Now,
so they should triangulate.
They should triangulate. Now, this was set up for the previous listening room, so it's actually off a little bit, but it still sounds
really good. We could adjust it a little bit, and who knows, we might still.
Yeah.
But we do really like the sound right now.
Yeah. So a couple of pointers. One, the baffle's really thick and heavy. And yes, it's not finished. It's still a prototype, folks. And maybe someday we'll call it done. And no, there will not be any dimensions. There are not going to be any specifications. This is something we noodled around with, and we're trying to give you sort of some pointers on how you can
do something similar. Yeah.
Do something similar. So a good heavy baffle, this is 1.5 inch thick MDF. That is really important. You want this to be dampened down and flat. You want to have good baffle distance between the edge here, because what will happen is you're going to get breakup here on the edge of your cone. So by coming here and relieving the edge, that helps. You could actually make this baffle even bigger, but aesthetics start to,
and finding spots to put it.
Yeah, that's right. So this is a fairly big speaker, even for a big room. So those are some things to keep in mind. And I haven't given too much thought to aesthetics. Sonics have always been our thing.
It's the most important thing. Aesthetics come after.
That's right. form follows function. Is that how it works?
Yeah.
So that's sort of been our philosophy. I mean, we recently got a really nice detailed email from one of our test builders in which he was talking about some of the aesthetics of one of our kit amps.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if you're putting 90% of the effort into the sound, and that's where the money goes,
Yep.
and 10% into the aesthetics, it means that the kits, and if you build your own open baffle, your own speakers, are going to be fairly inexpensive. Aesthetics, especially in an amp or a speaker, cost a small fortune to get them up. So you can basically take a kit amp with a fancy Italian chassis or a speaker with a fancy lacquer finish, and
double
you can
the price.
Double the price. Right off the bat.
So we want to get great sounding, affordable amps in people's hands.
Yeah, I think I always want our gear to be affordable. Mm-hmm. Well, I hope that helped everybody a little bit along in their journey, designing their own speakers.
And thanks for joining us in our listening room.
Let's head back to the lab, Charles.
All right.
Well, that was fun.
Yeah.
I think that's it's not the first time I've appeared in person.
Well, probably the first time for me, unless you've been on the forums.
Yeah, that's true. Anyways, hopefully everybody learned a little bit more about what makes open baffles work so well. So, what's been happening at Melotone Kits?
Well, we've been shipping some more kits, and things have been going really well.
Yeah, I think we shipped, within a couple of days, we shipped 2 Universal 6 or 12 SN7 preamps.
Mm-hmm, and a GU50 not too long before that.
Yeah, so in fact, we sold out of the GU50 the first run. We're working on a production run, our first production run of any kit. So we'll do the GU50 first. We're going to do 20 units, right?
We're going to do 20 units. It's proved to be one of our most popular kits so far, and people like the powerful monoblocks.
Yeah, and I think the Universal is our most popular preamp, and we'll do probably a production run of 20 units of those as well. Mm-hmm. So they're next after that, and of course we're developing. I got some parts. I've been waiting for my prototype phono preamp. I think I'm building version. I don't know how I've built a lot of versions. I think I'm up to 5, 6, or 7. Anyways, I've built a lot of them. This is normal in prototyping, particularly with something like a phono preamp that can be tricky.
There's added levels of complexity there.
Yeah, and of course, not only do we need to get the EQ, that's the equalization of the RIAA curve, right? Or it's never right, but it's close. You have to get it close. I want it to sound fantastic too.
Yep. And it has to work with a wide variety of styluses, right?
Yeah, geez, you're making it more and more complicated. Anyways, so and you're going to be we're not done moving, but this coming week we'll be mostly
probably
done.
Be like 90% there, maybe. We're hoping to get the majority of the rest of the stuff moved in.
And then you're going to start working again
on the headphone app,
and you'll be on version number 2, I think. Well,
I think technically version 3 at this point.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm looking actually, and we don't have the first version. You tore it down so that you could build the next version. So we got all these fantastic headphones, and I can't believe how good your first version sounded, and you tore it down. Oh my goodness.
Well, we're going to get that sound back.
Okay, because, I want to listen to some of this music on those headphones. Okay. And what came in this week?
Okay, well, let's clear the deck of all this stuff here.
Well, that was a big job.
And take a look at what we've got in. And we have some interesting power tubes. Let's get these arranged out here. So we're going to go my right to left, so your left to right here. And we're going to start off with this beautiful True Svetlana KT88. Let's get that better on camera. So the KT88, of course, is the higher powered version of a 6550, which are really popular. Or you could say the 6550 is a slightly lower power version of a KT88. And clearly they were made in the same place. They have almost identical bases, very similar plates. And the structure is very similar, although the KT88 is a bigger tube. It has higher dissipation, needs a bit more room, and has other differences like extra support rods, an extra mica, but otherwise they're very similar. And how do you know if these are true, original Svetlanas? Dad?
Well, look for the punch outs in the plates. That's
These guys right here.
Square punch outs in most cases mean it's the true St. Petersburg plant for SED, Svetlana Electronic Devices. I think there are some reissues and fakes that went with the square punch out, but the vast majority of the reissues and fakes are using the round punch out. And Svetlana never used a round punch out. They're always using this rectangular hole.
So that's an easy way to tell that they are true St. Petersburg production. So we got in a couple of KT88s, and we don't get them in very often, do we?
No, in fact, they come in ones, twos. I think once I found 8 of them, and it means, I mean, they are a rare tube. I don't think that Svetlana made even 10% as many as they did of the 6550s.
We see the 6550s quite a bit more, and they're a great tube. We love listening to them in the Wilsonton.
So I think we make up maybe 3 or 4 quads of KT88s a year, and unfortunately the 6550s are becoming rarer and rarer as well. So, and talking about rare tubes, something really special came in this week.
I'm sure you've all spotted it already. This is a true vintage Mullard box. I know it looks like it's brand new.
Well, it is brand new.
Well, it is brand new, but I mean, this thing is from the 60s. So to get a box in this condition...
Over 50 years old.
Over 50 years old. And look what's inside here. We have an EL34. So let's take a look at this tube, because this is just incredible here. I'm going to be very gentle because...
Now, when you're working in your lab or on your bench or in your system, you have to tell yourself there's one rule and only one rule. It doesn't matter if the dog barks, if your spouse yells at you, if there's an emergency at the front door, it does not matter. What's the rule?
Don't drop it.
Don't drop it.
I'm just going to move these guys off of here. But look at this beautiful wrapping. And this is not something that you'll find on even other new old stock tubes. So I'm going to carefully open this up because this is like tissue paper.
Yeah, we specialize in the Mullard XF2s, and I don't think we've ever had a new old stock one come or in its original wrapping.
And let's take a quick look at that. So this is just Mullard's guarantee. I'm not going to go into detail here, but it's basically saying if the tube arrives dead, if there's something wrong with it, they'll replace it. So I'm going to carefully lay that aside. That's going to stay with this tube. And inside that, we have this cardboard sleeve. And take a look at this beautiful Mullard EL34 XF2. The label is absolutely perfect on it. We have a beautiful full chrome dome. It's a single getter version. They made a double getter version, but we see these quite a bit more.
So what are the defining things for people who aren't sure if they've got a real Mullard XF2?
Okay, so the XF2s, compared to the XF3s and the 4s, use this welded plate structure on each side. They're tack welded. The later versions used a rivet system on here. They have these 2 long rectangular slots, which are typical. Then the micas have spikes on only one side. So it's smooth on one edge on each side. And we have a spiked mica. I believe that's only on the top one. The bottom is completely smooth. And they only ever made them with a single large halo getter or 2 halo getters connected together.
Yeah, 2 smaller halo getters.
And of course, being a Phillips tube, we have Phillips codes here. And let me see if I can get this on camera properly. There we go. So you can see XF2.
So that's the series.
And then the second line starts with B. So that's Blackburn plant. And 9. So what's 9 again?
9 is the second digit of the year. So that could be 59, 1969 or 1979. And in many cases, you don't know which decade you're in. But in this one, we do. Because the tube was only made from about 1960 to 72.
So it couldn't have been a 59.
No, that would have been an XF1. So that makes this a 1969. So right near the end of the production years. And there's one more defining feature of the tube.
Let's take a look at the base.
They all had a factory, I think that's a factory manufacturing registration.
Probably.
Or mount for it. So that center.
That little center pin on the center pin of the base.
Yeah. And let's look at the pins, because the pins are showing a little bit of marking.
They are.
And what would that be?
Well, I think it's a little bit of oxidation on here, but we don't see gouges in the pins that would show signs of heavy use or being popped in and out of a tester quite a bit.
But I have seen pictures in the Phillips plant in which they have a large carousel burn-in device for power tubes.
Yes.
And also one for tryouts. So these tubes probably were
burned in after they had their gettering applied. So they would burn them in for a period to make sure that the gettering was fully applied and that the plates were clean on the inside.
And that the tube is functional.
So it's sort of a testing procedure, quality control.
Yeah, so those marks might go right back to the very beginning in 1969.
They might. So we managed to find 2 of these beautiful examples in the box, in the nice sleeve, with the warranty and guarantee. And, you know, this is just incredibly rare. A lot of these tubes were made, but finding them new old stock like this these days is just so difficult. So
Our inventory is actually quite good right now, but they come in like that. We'll find 1, we'll find 2, we'll find 3, either new old stock or used, and it's a huge investment. They're not cheap tubes to buy wholesale, but we'll have about 100 at any time in stock. And with that kind of inventory level, it allows us to do close match quads.
Exactly, yeah. So we have some quads available, and we're going to get these tested and hopefully in the store soon.
Okay, well, thanks for doing that, Charles.
I'm going to very carefully put this tube away.
Number 1 rule?
Don't drop it.
Yeah. So if you stay to the end, here's some discount codes to help you out. And we've been paying out a code that's not on here. You could figure it out quite easily. Nobody has gotten a secret code if you spend the big bucks, which is, I actually fine with that. So we have flat rate shipping around the world of $20. And if your order's $150 or more, after discount, the shipping's on us, folks. Stay safe, everyone. Have fun. This is Jim.
And Charles.
Signing off. Cheers, everyone.